Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, HollywoodShono here, about to give you another Injustice Gods Among Us video. And in this video we talk about Injustice Mobile continuing for years to come. Now, to make this a reality, obviously they have to introduce a lot of these characters on the list and in 21-day challenges. If they're able to manage that, easily they could keep the game going for years, and you could build on the mobile app as well as expanding on their Injustice 2 game, which obviously is in a beta stage and a soft launch in the Philippines. So here's all the characters that we currently know. First off, we have Batman, which obviously is an Injustice 2 because you guys have seen gameplay on that. Superman, there's an Injustice 2 Superman, and it's pretty cool. Wonder Woman did obviously get a little bit of a makeover. She obviously has a little bit more armor and not quite as much cleavage, and Injustice 2 Wonder Woman definitely should be coming to the mobile game. Now, one character that would really be cool in Injustice Gods Among Us Mobile is Supergirl. Now, obviously, the hard part is figuring out stats for the characters that aren't busted, also passives, special abilities, and, in my opinion, buffing bad cards would definitely be good. Not necessarily the starter cards, but some of the challenge characters definitely need a little bit of an overhaul. And obviously, Aquaman is somebody that's already in Injustice 2, and something that could even have more skins. Regime Injustice 2 Aquaman, you could even have Regime Injustice 2 Superman, and that would be perfectly acceptable. Next up, we have a new character, Atrocious, could be related to Darkseid in some way, and would be really cool even if it had synergy with, for example, villains. You never know. Next up, we have Gorilla Grodd, which we've obviously seen in Injustice 2, and it's going to be an interesting one. Obviously, he'd be like a Solomon Grundy type character, but hey, if the special moves are good, why not? Next up on the list, we obviously have a Deadshot in Injustice Gods Among Us 1, courtesy of the Suicide Squad movie. But an Injustice 2 Deadshot would be cool because it could give additional synergy, and they have not announced a Joker yet. So, that's something that's going to be really interesting. Harley Quinn is definitely in the game. Hopefully they buff the specials on the Harley Quinn in Injustice 2, because I find them to be really weak. In Injustice Gods Among Us Mobile, the Team Heal is all the benefits you need from the Special 2, even if the Special 1 is crap, which is not the case with Animated or Suicide Squad Harley Quinn. But yeah, you got some good stuff there. And obviously making a return is the Flash. If you give a Injustice to the Flash, people are going to love it. Next on the list, we also have Blue Beetle, who's ready to level up, and this one would be pretty cool. I think it'd be a pretty interesting one. The special moves would definitely be off the wall, and it'd be pretty cool. And of course, we have Injustice 2 Bane. Pretty cool seeing some villains. Obviously, the Joker is missing from the list, as is Lex Luthor, which I'm really surprised they haven't announced him yet. But another new character announced, obviously, is Poison Ivy, and it's kind of cool that DC Legends is kind of showing off some of these new characters. Obviously, the Joker is in DC Legends, so that should be really interesting in itself. Next up, we have Brainiac. This is kind of like a modified Martian Manhunter, but that would be pretty cool. You could definitely have an Injustice 2 Brainiac. You could probably even fit in a Blackest Night Brainiac, and it'd probably make a lot of sense. Next up on the list, definitely a fan favorite, Robin. Now, obviously, we have Nightwing in Injustice Gods Among Us. Why not Robin? I think that'd be pretty cool. And next on the list, Black Canary. Definitely some good synergy with 600 Wonder Woman. Could also have some good synergy with Batgirl, and it'd definitely be good to have more females in the game besides Reskin, so that would be a really welcome one. And Swamp Thing, you talk about a cross between Martian Manhunter and Solomon Grundy. This one would definitely take the cake. You could definitely have some good passives and storylines with Swamp Things. You could even have buffs that affect green characters like Martian Manhunter and even Green Lantern, and people would probably play it. It'd be pretty cool. Also returning from Injustice Gods Among Us 1 is Catwoman, a very popular villain, and one that I would definitely like to see an Injustice 2 version of. Especially if they make the synergy kind of like Arkham Knight Catwoman with a cross with Amikami with an actual better passive, and Batman Returns Catwoman. If they have something along those lines, it'd be pretty cool, and maybe a better special one would definitely be welcome. And up next we have another female, Cheetah, which would be pretty cool to see in Injustice 2. Obviously, this card is in DC Legends, not very popular. But you know what? More females would definitely be welcome because they have the single best passive in the game is 600 Wonder Woman, and it's funny that a card that's been over 2 years old, almost 3 years old, is actually still playable in today's meta despite bad stats, just because it helps buff cards like Teen Titans Raven, Rebirth Raven, regular Raven, Killer Frost, yada yada. The list goes on. And it even buffs Arkham Knight Catwoman indirectly. And another fan favorite is obviously Cyborg. And you're going to be hearing a lot of Motown emotes for sure, because Cyborg is back in Injustice 2, and I really like the ideas they have with Prime Cyborg in Injustice 2, how he heals up 2% health. Be a great starter card, especially with Emerald Green Lantern and Horrific Scarecrow to help control the battle. And healing in Injustice 2 is just not there. Cyborg actually gives that, and could be a very interesting card to have for sure. Next up, we have Dr. Fate. Definitely falls in the line of Sinestro, who has not been announced yet. Could also fall in with some other cards like Green Lantern, for example, who is obviously returning in Injustice 2, which is also a popular one. And there's obviously shader effects with that. I believe you get John Stewart Green Lantern even makes a return, so pretty cool stuff there. And this one is obviously going to be really cool. If you made a Diablo character with Firestorm, it'd be pretty badass. Or just something that would like buff fire damage. Instantly, you could have a return for Prime Darkseid being useful. If it buffed fire damage, including the Ibistic and some other cool stuff, I could see that passive working in Injustice 2. And next up, another popular hero, Green Arrow, does make his return in Injustice 2. And yeah, we've needed a good Green Arrow in Injustice Gods Among Us 1 for quite a while. We haven't had one since Expansion 2.0, which introduced Green Arrow. And obviously my favorite, Sheikh Ahmed Habibi, Black Adam, is officially in Injustice 2, and I'm very excited for this one, obviously. I'm going to be playing a lot with Black Adam. And it's going to be interesting if they have any skins that make him look like the classic Injustice 1 Black Adam. I am totally looking forward to this, and you better believe I'm going to be kicking some ass with him. Next up, we have Captain Cold. Let's put you on ice. It almost kind of reminds me of the guy from the Suicide Squad, but could have some synergy with Killer Frost. Could even have a new ice meta, which we haven't seen any like ice gear. That'd be kind of cool. Might be a little bit busted in some ways, but if you have gear that kind of puts on Killer Frost special 1 effect, that'd be a good addition. And obviously the freeze effects kind of went out when double damage on freeze stopped becoming a thing, and Silver Green Arrow went from actually usable to an utter piece of crap. So yeah, it'd be cool to see Freeze make a comeback in Injustice 2 instead of just another layer of stunts. And finally, the next character that has been announced, Scarecrow. Obviously, Darkseid is a pre-order bonus, so we know that one. And Scarecrow is going to be an interesting one because it has that villainous look and it just looks really badass. So when it comes to Scarecrow, I definitely welcome it. So let's take a quick look in the Injustice Gods Among Us 1 roster. All whopping 122 characters now. 123, I believe. Alright, so we have our collection fully opened up and almost have the 80 days finally redone after the debacle with the Blackest Night Batman trying to buy it for 180,000 credits. But you can see here there's a lot of variants, and Injustice 2 Aquaman is already in the game. We do not have an Injustice 2 Bane, and quite frankly, other than Luchador Bane, no Banes are playable despite the improved stats of Arkham Origins Bane. It's either Luchador Bane or don't even try the card, it's just garbage. Obviously, we have not seen a Batgirl announced for Injustice 2 yet, but I have a feeling it's going to be a DLC character, and it's going to be one that's going to be an interesting one if Batgirl makes a return, or if they're just using Supergirl in place of that. It's going to be some interesting stuff. Now, obviously, there's a million Batmans. We haven't seen an Injustice 2 Batman, but honestly, I would not be complaining if that's the last Batman we see for quite a while. And Prime Batman kind of reminds me of Injustice 2 Batman, so all they simply have to do is buff the stats to 1200, 1200, and the card would instantly see play again. Because Way of the Bat is actually really good. You see Black Adam has 3 versions, definitely could use more. 5 Catwomans, we have 3 Cyborgs, and Injustice 2 Cyborg would be amazing. Apocalypse Darkseid still played to this day, and having an Injustice 2 Darkseid would actually fill out your Darkseid roster, pretty cool. So you have a Suicide Squad Deadshot, you have a Injustice 2 Deadshot, and you could even have a version of Deadshot that would be without his mask and any of that, kind of like the civilian version, and that would be pretty cool. And it's a lot of similarities to Deathstroke, who is in DC Legends, however, is not in Injustice 2. I have a feeling that Deathstroke is going to make a return in some capacity, and Doomsday. Really interesting that we're not going to be seeing a Doomsday in Injustice 2. But since the focus is not on characters like Zod, do you really need Doomsday? Probably not. As you can see, Green Arrow definitely could use a buff. And I wouldn't be complaining if they actually make a Green Arrow that is in the meta outside of the Red Suns or a female Jessica Cruz. And maybe changing Red Lantern Hal Jordan being healed with the same passive might be pretty cool. Harley Quinn is in the game. Hawkgirl is in DC Legends, but is not in Injustice 2. And Killer Frost, obviously not in Injustice 2 as well. I would love to see more than 2 variants, but who knows if we'll get that. And Lex Luthor, I feel definitely should get a upgraded variant of some point, even if it's just Crypto. Lobo, I have a feeling we're not going to see. We're probably not going to see Martian Manhunter with Swamp Thing. And Nightwing, you got Robin. Why do we need it? Are we going to see Raven? Probably not. And I really hope they do not include Sub-Zero in Injustice 2. I think that would just be totally stupid. I have a feeling that Sinestro will be in form in some capacity. So that should be interesting. And I have a feeling Solomon Grundy's also going to make it into Injustice 2 in some capacity. They haven't announced all the characters yet, so we have to see on that. And one interesting card we have not seen another version of in either DC Legends or Injustice 2 is Static. One of the funnest cards in Injustice 2, Gods Among Us 1 that you could still make work in today's meta just because of the cool passive where he's immune to power drain and successfully blocking special attack that generates power. I think that was really well designed, kind of like Godfall Superman. So, obviously the Flash is going to be making it. It'd be really cool to see the Arkham Knight in some form of skin for Batman. I think that'd be pretty badass. Because they're including characters in Injustice Gods Among Us Mobile that are not in Injustice 2. And I'd really be surprised if the Joker does not make it. However, I would be surprised if Zod or Zatanna actually make the game. I really doubt that. So, if they run a lot of these Injustice 2 characters in Injustice Gods Among Us 1 mobile, I really think that they could keep the game going for a long period of time, whether Injustice 2 becomes a total flop on mobile, or if people actually give the game a try. You could introduce these characters, you could make them a single challenge, you could even make them an early access pack. I'm sure people would buy them. And yeah, you could see a lot of cool stuff. And the coolest one that I think that they could add to Injustice Gods Among Us 1 would definitely be Robin, Supergirl, and I really think that Cheetah and Black Canary would be welcome, and Firestorm would definitely be a cool one. But I also think that Captain Cold could definitely make it in Injustice Gods Among Us 1, and Blue Beetle would be pretty cool. I'd like to see some of these characters introduced in Injustice 1, and I highly advise a lot of you guys to share this video among the Injustice community, both on the NetherRealm forums and on Reddit. Let your voice be heard, and let them include Injustice characters in Injustice Gods Among Us Mobile, because we already got 2 of them. And I have a feeling that Injustice Gods Among Us Mobile is going to be played for years to come, even if Injustice 2 doesn't become a thing, kind of like DC Legends is starting to die out. So, hope you guys like this little video, and leave your feedback below. Have a wonderful day, kids.
www.youtube.com/HollywoodShono. Subscribe, bitches!